just going to go to my channel to actually see the title. How time and space is created through thought and imagination. So how time and space is created through thought and imagination. Yeah. Well, that is a very good question. So how time and space is created through thought and imagination. Yeah, I'm just waiting for an answer to authentically come. Like obviously I could answer that through the mind because I've been doing these talks for over 12 years now, so I kind of know what the answers are intellectually, but I try to speak from this more organic place, which is like flow. Yeah, which is very hard to describe, and that's a whole nother talk to talk about that. So time and space is what creates the idea of you. It's such an amazing phenomena to be able to imagine time and space. I don't know what it's like to be inside an animal, but I assume inside a fly's brain or inside a dog's brain or a cat's brain or a horse's brain, they don't have time and space. I can't be sure about that because I can't go in their brain. But we have the ability to have something called time and space. And they go hand in hand. And they're actually an imagination and thoughts. They're not actually a reality, which kind of seems like a craziness, like this is some cultic brainwashing or something, because time and space seem like a fundamentals of truth in our experience. Like there's definitely time and there's definitely space. Like if I went to the general population that hadn't been listening to non-duality or thinking about science or something, or studied a philosophy course, they maybe would be thinking that this was madness. I can imagine this creating like a fierce anger. Of course there's time and space. And this might seem like some form of gaslighting. Nope, there's no time and space. So our imagination is so incredibly powerful. The ability to imagine. It might not seem like that. It might not seem like it's a really strong imagination. Because how can you know what that looks like? How can you know what life is like when you're not looking through thoughts and imagination? I mean, in a way, it's kind of bonkers for me even to suggest that's possible, because we're always going to be looking at this reality through a human brain. So in a way, there's always going to be some thoughts and some ideas appearing. But there can be a going back to a more primitive brain, or a more evolved brain, I don't know what to call that, where we do see, or we can experience beyond thought and imagination, or there can be some kind of connection with something that's beyond thought and imagination. So there can be a knowing of a difference between looking at the world through imagination and not looking at the world through imagination. And it's kind of crazy how deep this goes. Like I remember one time when I was in deep meditation, I couldn't perceive music. So if we take music, for example, we feel like that's a real fixed thing. That you're listening to, I don't know, Kylie Minogue's I Should Be So Lucky, and it's like a fixed thing. It's like a tape or a CD or a song that plays, a digital song that plays, and everyone can perceive it. But what we don't realize is that our brains are sewing it together to make sense. Like, to a dog, that's not music, or to a bee, that's not music. It doesn't make sense. Like, there's no thought and imagination that's tying it together. So when you have these awakening experiences and you really drop out of thinking and imagination, like, none of this stuff makes sense. Even music, it was like I couldn't perceive the song. It didn't sound like a song, even though it sounded the way it was. I couldn't sew it together to make it make sense, to hold it into a melody. And that required space. It requires space and time to know it as a song. It requires the imagination of past and the imagination of future and the imagination of space in order to sew it together to make a song. So you need to be able to connect the current sounds to the previous sounds. I mean, it's really intelligent what we're doing. We give the human the hard time calling it stupid often, or simplistic, but it's a really complex phenomena. To hear music, to understand a song. So there needs to be some form of intelligent thinking to sew together the music from the past. And you kind of need to hold future in your mind as well in order to comprehend it. So if you go really deeply into stillness, into your true nature, like, you can't, if you totally went into oneness, you can't have any human experience, like in a way that's as if the body's being dead. So in this reality, there always needs to be some form of looking through a body in order to perceive this life. If you really go into oneness, then you can't perceive this life anymore, because there's no interpretation of this world happening. So there needs to be some form of interpretation of this world in order to interact with it. But you can have moments of going completely beyond the mind and the body, where you have no idea about being a mind and a body, and nothing in this world would make sense because you haven't got a body to interpret it, and nothing in this world would appear because you've got no body or brain to interpret it. So that's like really super complex to try to imagine. But if you've had awakening experiences, you might have a sense of what's being talked about, of non-duality. So that we need this concept of time and this concept of space in order to have this complex functioning. So they become so real to us. So I don't know what it would be like music to people that were pre-verbal, whether they would be able to comprehend that. Because in a way, we need a certain intelligent form of thinking to sew all these memories together and to be able to interpret. So, and that most probably comes with a perception of time. And a perception of time is not only the clock time that says it's 4:30 now, it's also a perception of a seeming movement through time. That there was a body that existed 10 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago, and prior to language, I'm not sure if the human would have experienced that. They don't know if they would have been able to remember that, because they wouldn't have the language to announce that. So if we look at my dog Khaleesi, I'm not sure if she can perceive that she existed 10 minutes ago. I don't think so, because if she can't think in the way that we can, there's thinking happening there, but not thinking in words. If she can't think in words, then I'm not sure if she can perceive that. So she has no idea that she was alive 10 minutes ago. So to her, there's only aliveness happening. So we need this in order to have these complex phenomena appearing like music. And also, the separate self can only exist with time and space. Like, so Khaleesi, my dog, can't perceive that she was alive 10 minutes ago, so therefore, who is she in every moment? And she's no thing. Not a thing. She's not a person. She's nothing and everything simultaneously. She is perception without perception being separate from the objects. So there's a complete immersion in life. And I would say that she doesn't suffer, although she experiences pain and pleasure. But she doesn't suffer the pain and pleasure. Whereas humans, I would say, suffer their pains and pleasure because of this phenomena of believing that they were alive 10 minutes ago and then being stuck in time. So their thoughts being stuck in time. And this identification with thoughts and this belief that who you are is somebody that existed 10 minutes ago, is going to exist in the future, and a complete forgetting of presence, of no-thingness, of beingness that's here. So a complete forgetting of your true nature, which is here prior to birth and after death. The complete forgetting of timelessness and the sole identification with the movement through time, which is a false identification and creates a lot of suffering because it's not who you are and you cannot hold on to yourself. And that is deeply disturbing for the person, that you cannot hold on to yourself. So time and space create everything. Well, not create everything, but create most of your experiences, the belief in time and space. That there is something that's previously happened to now. And what I ask is that true? There is an imagination of something that's happened prior to now. So there's an imagination of that. But is that actually the experience? That there is something that happened prior to now? I mean, this is really a full-on subject because it's asking you to go beyond what the whole of society and your whole life has been telling you, that there is a previous moment to now, rather than there simply being the eternal now. There is a previous moment to this. I mean, is that true, that there is a previous moment to this in your experience, in your direct experience? In society, we need to use this idea of there being time. So that's how society functions. So I'm not asking you to drop out of society and to believe that that's not, that dream world of time isn't relevant. I'm not trying to talk about how you should or shouldn't deal with society and this notion of time, but what I'm trying to ask you to do is to go beyond your addiction to time, that time is your savior, that time and space is what's going to bring you freedom, and it is your truth. It's where you exist in, that you as a person exist in time and space. And I'm asking you to go back to your actual experience. So in your actual experience, beyond thought and beyond imagination, does time and space happen? Is there a time and space? And this is really about your own experience, not about what you know and what you think. I'm not trying to actually convince you of something, even though it sounds like I am. I'm trying to point out something in experiencing which has been overlooked. And it's the same that goes with space. Like there is this idea that there is a you that's walking around through something out there called space. And that too is an imagination. That's maybe like more of a far out imagination than the time one. I don't know which one's more believable, time or the space, or space. Which one is more believable? So this idea of space, that there is somebody moving through space, that there is a you that is in relationship to space, and you're moving through space. Now, where is space now? Where is the beginning point to your experience? So most people think, okay, I start behind my eyes, I start back here, and then I'm looking out at a space. But where is this space? Where does it start? And where does it end? So where is this start to space and this end to space? And all this space that you imagine out there in this world. Like, imagine if I was talking to you inside your dream at night, and then I said to your character that's dreaming it's asleep at night in its dream world, maybe we're in Charlie's chocolate factory, and then I said to you, where is this space? And you'd be like, it's here, I'm sitting here and there's all this space around me. But what is that? Is for that's your dream at night. Is that actually space? And where does that character that I'm speaking to in your dream start and stop? Like, it's all your dream. So where is this space? It's also like a film. Like, is the space in film? It's illusory. We see this projection on a screen and say they're walking through a cowboy town or something. And we think they're walking through space, but it's actually a light dance happening and there is no space. It's 2D. It just appears 3D. But they go hand in hand, this idea of time and space. It's like the fundamentals of our language and our society. And science has disproved that time isn't a fixed thing and that space isn't a fixed thing, I think. Although I'm not a scientist, and so, you know, it's easy to spout these things, isn't it? And then when it really comes to it, somebody gets their machine gun out and was like, tell me more about that, what science says. I'm like, I do the Wallace and Gromit face. Cheese? Yeah. So what is it if we drop time and space and we drop this idea of you? What else is happening in this moment? I mean, in a way, if you drop time and space, the you goes. Tony Parsons used to say there is me in time. You get it? T-I-M-E, me in time. So if we drop time and space, what's happening? This is so full on. You know, we can take these concepts and philosophize about them until the cows come home. But to really drop it now, to really be with me now, to really be here now together with no time and space, what does that mean? What is that? To me, even though there is no me, it's absolute intimacy. It's love. There is no distance between a you and an I, because there is no you and I. There is simply life happening, a one life happening. Man, this is so full on. This is so different from the way that people regularly think. Like, what does that even mean to people outside of knowing non-duality, that there is no I, me and you? What do you mean there's no me and you? Right now, if you stop thinking about me and you, if you drop all thought about time and space and me and you and what's going to happen and not happened and should happen, what's left? Who are we? Who are we? This is so scrumptiously delicious. Yeah, and you know, I'm really not a speaker for people that are initially getting into non-duality. You know, you might need to listen to other speakers. I only really like to do the more extreme stuff. I latterly don't really want to talk about psychology or the person. Even though I did lots of psychology on myself and I've learned loads about it, and I mean, I've been studying non-duality for such a long time. You know, you have to come back to being authentic, and authentically, this is just what I want to speak about. And you know, and I can understand it's really extreme the way I speak, and it's really confusing. And so maybe for some people it's better to listen to other speakers and then come back to the way I speak once you've got used to non-dual language. And then also another thing I would like to expose is, I've said this before in talks, is that I also try to say from my opinion, which ultimately there is no my opinion. Like, there's just words coming out, just like for you as well. But the reason that I try to do that and try to, you know, say you've got to make up your own mind or you've got to see this for yourself, or in my opinion, is because I'm purposely trying to not be cultic. You could also say that it's just a coming out. But in this coming out, it doesn't want to be cultic. And what I mean by that is, when you get involved in cults, which non-duality often becomes cultic, and I'm sure there's ways in which I speak that are cultic, but because I've come from cultic practices, it's sort of ingrained into me. But I'm also trying to not be cultic, and what that means is I'm not trying to be an authority figure where I know all the answers and you don't. That's not what non-duality is about. And to me, it's defamation. I don't know how you say the shortness of that, of non-duality. That people that listen to non-duality become too fixated on the person that's expressing it, whereas the person is simply a vehicle and they're not special in any way. And what we've come from through our patriarchal society is thousands of years of having dictatorial leaders. And so we have a predisposition to go towards cultic thinking and coercive behavior as our leaders. I see it. The more cultic a teacher is, normally the more popular they become. Because we have a predisposition to move towards extreme fixed ways of speaking, because in the past that saved our lives. I know that sounds weird, but we just take language so personally, that it's about you and me, where it's really not. Like, ideas were created in order to make our survival better and to make us survive more successfully. And most probably people with stronger ideas did better at leading. And so even leaders that were coercive and dictatorial, maybe in the past did better at leading, not now. Now is a whole different picture, but I'm talking like 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or even maybe 100 or 200 years ago. And the reason that it had done better is because you can control the masses. Part of the problem that we have in society, or when you're running a group, if you've ever run a group before, is how do you give everybody the apparent freedom to choose and get them all to do the same thing at the same time. So just simple, like you want people to come into a room and sit down and listen to you talk. We take that as a given, somebody's given a talk, we give them the respect, we sit down and we listen. But that's not a given. That's because we're trained in that manner. Our education system has trained us in that manner. But how do we get humans to all work together on society or communities or families? And the way in which we've done it in the past is we've had dominating people with dominating ideas. And that's really, I think, helped us survive. I can see how it's helped us survive. And I can see how that gives us some form of security as well. There's somebody with a strong idea. Like sometimes I've led groups, I'm a bit of an experimenter, and I've led groups and I've tried to give them more choice, apparent choice in what happens. And it inevitably leads to conflict because people have different ideas and then they find out the other people's ideas. It's such a delicate balance leading a group Whereas if you come in and you're coercive and you're dictatorial, and everyone's afraid of you, then they're more likely going to do what you say without rebellion. But we're now moving away from that in society, maybe, sort of. I mean, it's so complex. But basically, what I'm trying to do with speaking about non-duality is to move away from a dictatorial leader. It's not so popular though. Because we're used to the safety in strong ideas. So what's the most important thing in non-duality to me is that no idea is a truth. And I'm not an authority on truth. I'm not an authority on knowing what you should do with your life or how you should heal yourself or how you should become free. I'm not. I don't know. That's really complex. And there's people that have trained for years and years in these areas. Not the coming free thing, but therapy and all these types of things. But one thing that I do know from these awakening experiences that I've had is the freedom that is beyond language. But that's not a fixed idea, but it seems like a fixed idea because I'm communicating it to you through ideas. But it's not a fixed idea. It has no idea. It doesn't know anything at all. And anything that I say knowing something in words isn't a truth. It's not a fact. So if I said to you, oh, you've got to put your attention in the I am, and that's how you become free. That's not a fact. That's words put together, and we're all interpreting it with different meanings and different ideas, and our imagination is flourishing with that. And that's not non-duality. I'm not saying don't do that, because do that if that's what comes. And for some people that's been super helpful, and I see it really settles people down doing that. But that's not non-duality. Non-duality is non-conceptual. If you say anything about non-duality, then you're missing the point completely. Tony Parsons used to say, if you leave this room believing anything I say, you've missed what I've said. Something like that. Maybe he would think I'm bastardizing what I say. So I do have opinions on the human level. And you hear me express my opinions. Like, in a way, even this is an opinion. But none of them are true, and none of them are better than yours. I really mean that. We've been so gaslit and talked out of ourselves by this society. And I don't want that in non-duality as well. Non-duality isn't about this or that. It's about no thing. And yet I seemingly have authority on that because there has been these awakening experiences and there is a deep knowing of it. But it's not intellectual. That's what's so wonderful about this. This is what's so miraculous about non-duality. It cannot be made into a religion. It cannot be made into a cult, even though it is made into a cult, but that's not non-duality. Because true non-duality isn't a personal thing. So there's no person that could follow another person. Like, your true beingness can't follow me, can't follow other teachers. It's so beautiful. It's total unconditioned love. This is why I fell in love with non-duality, because it's not a religion, it's not a philosophy, it's not something someone can give you. And if somebody's saying to you, you have to do this in order to become enlightened, that's okay. and you can follow them, but it's you following them. It's something in survival. It's something in the human world. It's something about us doing something in time and in thought and in imagination. And non-duality isn't in that world. It's right here. It's not a belief. It's not an idea. It's not something you're going to get to, but yet it's here. You know, don't be distracted by my charisma, or my or any teacher's charisma. You know, it's not about the teacher. Yes, there can be a resonance beyond the words when somebody's speaking, but that still doesn't make me special. That's beingness speaking. It's just using this mouth. It's nothing to do with a character. It's so hard to think about this subject, right? Like, because everything I say in a way contradicts itself. You know, it's so hard. So it really comes back to that resonance in this moment of no thought, no imagination, no going somewhere. There is nowhere to go. Oh, God, I love this subject. I really do. I've been into this subject for quite a long time now. You know, nearly half my life, and I just never could possibly get bored with it. Whereas psychology, I can get bored with. I can't be bothered to teach psychology anymore, or helping the personal self or the chakras. I mean, it's great. There's old videos of me speaking about these things, but I got bored of speaking about it. I've spoken about it enough. But this subject, I can't ever speak about it enough because it's not a subject. It's not a teaching. Even though I have to call myself a teacher, that's actually more for tax reasons. Is teaching, or you know, it's more like, or for social media or something that you have to be called something. Actually, for now, I'm called a philosopher, I think. I mean, what do you name yourself? The tax office comes and say, "What is your business?" I speak about nothing. Do you have a category for that? Yeah. Okay, so we move to questions. If you want to speak to me, you can do in the Telegram channel. If you join that, then you can put your hand up and I will take a question.